Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, he's done it again, ladies and gents. He's managed to drop the ball with getting a guest. There was a guest, then there wasn't a guest. It was my fault. I can't slice it any other way. I dropped the ball. Speaking of balls, we're talking about an egg-shaped one. It's not really egg-shaped, it's just not round. That's right, it's American football, and it's the Laces Out podcast, so we are talking American football. Just me and my co-host this week, because, no guest. But, we cover everything off. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And the big one, if you know somebody who's into the NFL, send this podcast their way. They will surely love it. Right, enough from me. Let's get to, some more of me, but, some Paul as well. So, Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
Allegedly, recording is in progress. Luckily, it's in progress now and not 2 minutes ago when I was ranting and raving about some recent hiring and firing situations going on in the NFL world. This point in time, by the time you receive this, everybody, I'm sure, will be aware of recent firings in the NFL world. I'm sure everybody has an opinion. And mine is no less heated than anyone else's, let's put it that way. It is the Laces Out podcast. It is CookieCast's NFL podcast. I'm here. My co-host, Mr. Paul Williams, is here. We are talking NFL, a sport not even from this country, apart from last week. But yeah, anyway. How are you, sir? How are you feeling about recent hirings / firings?
I'm pretty good. I think it's probably safe to say that I'm probably a bit better than Robert Saleh is at this point. But obviously, we'll come to chat about Mr. Saleh at a later point. Shall we dive into week 5?
I don't know.
Let's go to week 5, shall we?
I don't know, because I'm pretty sure game 1, week 5, might have been on my side bet predictions, and I'm pretty sure I lost. And at that point, I went, not to foreshadow anything, but yes. Let's get into week 5.
Well, wonder no longer, Mr. Cook, as week 5, 14 games it brought with us. We started the byes this week as well. We had the Lions, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Titans all on bye this week. So those 4 teams didn't play, which left us with 14 games to choose from. And of those 14 games, one of myself, Mr. Cook, and last week's guest, Mr. Stuart Woodmansey, making his second appearance of the season, only got 7 of 14 selections correct. Sadly, it was Mr. Andrew Cook, I'm afraid.
Oh, my days!
He is indeed correct in that his first selection of the first game of the week let him down, in as much as he had the Buccaneers to beat the Falcons, which they did not do. The Falcons got the W in overtime in that one, in what sounded like one hell of a game, to be honest with you. If I had the means, I would definitely go back and watch that one in its entirety. However, he did get correctly the Vikings to beat the Jets, the Bears to beat the Panthers, the Ravens to beat the Bengals, the Dolphins to beat the Patriots, the Commanders to beat the Browns, the Packers to beat the Rams, and the Chiefs to beat the Saints, which means he was let down by the Buccaneers not beating the Falcons, the Bills not beating the Texans, the Colts not beating the Jags, The Raiders not beating the Broncos. The 49ers not beating the Cardinals. Big shock there.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawks not beating the Giants. Big shock there as well.
Mm.
And the Steelers not beating the Cowboys. So yeah, just 7 of 14, half distance, shall we say? Mr.
Halfway
Cook.
for ladies. I have to play the rest of the hole with my trousers around my ankle. Wonderful.
Absolutely. In other weeks, 7 out of 14 would have been enough for a share of second place. Sadly, this week, only good enough for third place. Someone else making a prediction last week got 9 of 14 selections correct. Now, was it myself or was it Mr. Woodmansey, the guest? Luckily for me, it was Mr. Stuart Woodmansey with 9 of 14 selections. The teams that let him down were the Buccaneers and the Falcons, the Colts at the Jags, the Raiders at the Broncos, the 49ers at home to the Cardinals, and the Seahawks at home to the Giants. All the other teams he got correct. So 9 out of 14 selections, which means that winning the week was myself. And I had rather a good week. I got 11 of 14 selections correct. And
Ooh.
at one point, I was on for a clean sweep of the early games, as the only one in the early game, in the early window that let me down, was the Bengals over the Ravens. And had the Bengals kicker been able to make his 50-yard field goal that he attempted in overtime, I would have taken the win there. Sadly, he did not. The Ravens and Derrick Henry went to town. The Ravens got their field goal and they took the win. The other two teams that let me down were the 49ers at home to the Cardinals and the Seahawks at home to the Giants. Like everybody else, I was let down by those boys. Which means, after 5 weeks, the guest is still to get off the mark. Mr. Cook has 2 points. I move into an early lead with 3 points. There was the side bet, however, from week five, sorry. And Mr. Cook was indeed correct in that he had selected the Buccaneers as one of his 4 teams.
I knew
He
it.
had also selected the Seahawks as one of his 4 teams.
Oh, sweet mother of.
He did bring it back though with the Commanders and the Vikings as his other 2 teams. So did get 2 points apiece there to move on to 12 points from a possible 20 so far this season. I had the 49ers as one of my selections, so no points there for me. But the other 3 of mine, the Bears, the Chiefs, and the Packers, did get the job done, which moves me from 10 points to 13 points for the season and an early lead there. That's the week 5 predictions, and the book sorted out. I believe it's stats o'clock.
Yes, and as I'm sure you are aware at this point in time, a hefty round of stats this week. It just kept going and going and going. I was like, oh my word, what's going on here? I will say this about this week's game. There was a point where it felt like playoff football. Like my heart rate was going up because I was like, this is mental. Like game going into overtime and the overtime being bonkers. I mean, we could spend a little bit of time trying to question what the hell was going on in that Bills game. That whole thing at the back end.
Have you so the head coach for the Bills came out and did it in his press conference afterwards. I think he did say that obviously hindsight being 2020, they probably should have had a go on the first down. Obviously seen that the pass was incomplete, seen what the situation was, and maybe have reassessed. But obviously he just said, "Oh yeah, I need to take that one on the chin." Obviously, I think the thing that was going against them was the fact that the Texans had 3 timeouts. So had they ran the ball each of the 3 times, they'd have just stopped the clock on them anyway, pinned them, tried to get that punt as close to the sort of midfield as they can, take one shot, just give CJ Stroud the chance to unleash one, clock it, and then just kick the field goal, which obviously was what ended up happening anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, like the commentators were like, "What is happening right now? What is going on? What is this insanity?" I think when that's what's being said at the time it's actually happening, it's like, am I the only one seeing this? And clearly I wasn't. Yes, I do have NFL stats week 5 of the 2024-2025 season. Credit to Nate Davis of USA Today, and obviously big credit to the stats mistress for bringing us the juiciest of stats. A lot to get through, so let's get started. Number 1, there are now 0 winless teams in the NFL following the Jacksonville Jaguars, dare we say it, thrilling 37-34 defeat of the undermanned Indianapolis Colts. Number 2, the Minnesota Vikings record became 4-0 in games played in London, where they beat the New York Jets 23-17 on Sunday, giving them the best all-time mark in international series games. Love a stat. Number 3, the win made the Vikes 5-0 on the season, the league's best. The reigning champion Kansas City Chiefs matched it by beating the New Orleans Saints on Monday night. There was a part where I was like, I feel like we should maybe have a conversation about like the Chiefs, the team they are, and the one question I have this season especially. Can you name a team at this point in time that you think could genuinely beat the Chiefs right now?
I would like to see him go up against a full strength Ravens team and not struggle.
I'd like to see them go up against full boat Ravens. I think I can probably predict the outcome of that game. The chance of them not being one of the 2 teams in the Super Bowl at this point in time, I think, is almost 0. And it's getting to the point where it's a bit like, so what? We're just playing to find out who the other team is? Mental. Anyway, number 4, New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, helped engineer an upset of the Seahawks in Seattle, despite the absence of Giants wunderkind wide receiver Malik Nabers for a concussion. Jones only has 1 turnover in his past 4 games. Number 5, Los Angeles Rams running back Tyron Williams has scored a touchdown in 8 consecutive regular season games, currently the league's longest streak. Number 6 is a bit of a doozy. We've already touched on it, so let's get into it. Number 6 is Bills quarterback Josh Allen made just 9 completions on 30 attempts in Sunday's 23-20 loss to the Houston Texans. And former Buffalo wide receiver 1, Stefon Diggs. Allen was 0 for 3 on the Bills' regrettable final possession, which remained anchored to their 3-yard line and necessitated a punt, one that helped set up Houston's game-winning 59-yard field goal on the game's final play. Allen didn't complete more than 2 passes to any of his teammates. Leading receiver Khalil Shakir was out with an ankle injury, and his 30% completion rate was the lowest of his 7-year career. Bad news in Buffalo. Number 7, in comparison, again, we've already mentioned these guys, Baltimore Ravens Lamar Jackson and Cincinnati Bengals Joe Burrow managed to make 9 combined touchdown passes between them in the game of the day Sunday, with Baltimore taking a 41-38 overtime triumph in Cincinnati. My final stat of the week is my favorite player of the week, Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase made 10 catches and scored touchdowns covering 41 and 70 yards. His 193 receiving yards are a league high for a game to this part of the season. However, Ryan Recow's blow hold on a field goal attempt in overtime likely cost the Bengals their much-needed second victory. A real shame after his 5 punts average nearly 51 yards. I was scheduled to lose heavily in a fantasy game at the weekend, and I mean by 30 points projected was my loss. I started Sunday by saying, oh, good, I'm really looking forward to losing to the same person that I lost to. I think it was like 2 weeks ago because it's a small league. Jamar Chase's 31 points helped me out with that one. And finally secured a win. Anyway, enough about fantasy football. Let's keep it going with more stats from yourself, sir.
Indeed, and I start my stats with, on Sunday, running back Derrick Henry became just the 5th player in league annals with at least 10,000 rushing yards and 100 touchdowns in his first 125 NFL games. 3 of the other 4 are in the Hall of Fame: Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, and LaDainian Tomlinson. And the 4th, Adrian Peterson, is very, very likely to follow. Steelers pass rusher extraordinaire T.J. Watt, the only man with 3 official NFL sack titles, notched his 100th career sack Sunday night in just his 109th start. Only Hall of Famer Reggie White hit that century benchmark in fewer games, 96, which, when you think about it, is absolutely mental.
Yeah.
Washington Commanders rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels came back to earth a bit, completing a pedestrian 14 of 25 throws in Sunday's win over the Cleveland Browns. After connecting on at least 70% of his passes in his first 4 NFL starts, and better than 85% in the previous 2, still, Daniels' league-leading 77.1 mark on the season is second only to Drew Brees in 2018 of 77.9% in terms of the most accurate start to a season through 5 games. Daniels joins Joe Ferguson, the 1973 Bills, and Dak Prescott of the 2016 Dallas Cowboys as the only rookie QB signed since the merger to go 4-1 at the start of the season. And speaking of rookie quarterbacks, the Chicago Bears' Caleb Williams has improved on his passer rating in every game since week 2, culminating with a season-best 126.2 in Sunday's 36-10 rout of the Carolina Panthers. With Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos also cruising past the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday, the 3 rookie quarterbacks currently starting in the league have gone a collective 6-0 over the past 2 weeks and are 8-1 collectively since week 3. In miles per hour, per Next Gen Stats, Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain top speed on Sunday was 20.92 miles per hour, making him the first defender of 2024 to break the 20-mile-hour barrier on a pick 6, which covered 100 yards in this case. By comparison, the top speed in miles per hour per Next Generation Stats of the Arizona Cardinals' Kyler Murray was 21.27 on his 50-yard TD run Sunday, the fastest posted by a quarterback in the NGS era, which is since 2016. Jags rookie wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. was recorded at 22.15 miles per hour on his 85-yard touchdown reception in Sunday's win. Nobody's run faster this season, all for the Jags in the last 8 years. Just going back to that Kyler Murray stat, obviously he ran 50 yards for the touchdown. I think they actually showed it a couple of times that he actually celebrated when he still had like 40 yards to go.
So I saw a video today that was saying that this is the hands down the biggest, because he had so far to go and just like he passed like a batch of players and celebrated. It was like they like zoomed in, slowed it down and stuff, and it's like, I mean, that's some stones right there.
Obviously, like he's obviously like ran the scene, and obviously he's like noticed the gap that's there, and obviously like he knows that if he's got enough blockers in front, obviously he knows that they're going to take care of each one of the defenders. That's a pretty cool thing to know.
It reminded me of that famous Tiger Woods walk away putt, where he puts the ball, turns, walks, takes his hat off, shakes guy hand, and the ball's just still going in, and it's like, oh right, yes, because he's hit that many times, he knows it's going in, and he could just carry on with his day. It's like, gee.
Outrageous, isn't it? 2 more stats for me. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson has suffered 26 sacks this season, and the most in the league after being taken down 7 times by the Commanders on Sunday. Watson has been bagged 18 times in the past 3 games, including a career worst 8 in Week 3. It never rains but it pours in Cleveland. Jesus
I did
Christ.
see I did see a stat which probably isn't worth mentioning on here, but it was about it was a comparison of Deshaun Watson's on field stats versus some off field activity. But yes, it was hilarious.
The less said about that, the better. And my final stat: former league MVP Matt Ryan went into the Atlanta Falcons Ring of Honor on Thursday night, only to watch quarterback Kirk Cousins break his single-game team record by passing for 509 yards in a 36-30 overtime victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cousins became the first player in the Super Bowl era, which is always since 1966, to throw for 250 yards both before and after half-time of the same game. Wow. I mean, that's some numbers. I believe Matt Moore summed it up perfectly when we woke on Friday morning to see the group chat just saying something along the lines of Kirk fucking Cousins, I believe was the phrasing that he so eloquently put down, so to speak.
Yes, I may have made my opinions known previously, but it's also that thing that sometimes you can't really argue with, well played games, well played sort of stats and things like that. So yeah, I also have that theory that there is a team out there for every quarterback, and sometimes the quarterback in question is not on the right team, and sometimes they are. I think you can, like, especially like this season, you could highlight certain quarterbacks on certain teams that are absolutely on the team that they should have been on previously. You could probably also point out 1 or 2 that are maybe not on the right team as it stands at the moment. But it is what it is. So the stats portion closes the history books on week 5 of the 2024-2025 season. That then catapults us swiftly into predicting week 6 and talking a little bit of side action. Now then, obviously, I didn't cover it at the start, but it's probably best to cover it now. There was, I swear, on, a hand right there, I swear there was a guest. There was definitely a guest. And then there wasn't a guest. And it was my fault. There's a lot to keep in this tiny little mind, and sometimes things fall out. And sometimes you go, I'll do that later, and then later ends up being too late. So as always, I'm absolutely holding my hands up on this one. The guest fell through, so we had to get ourselves out there into our bag of guests that we keep under the stairs. And I believe, Mr. Williams, that the Stats Mistress is pulling down double duty this week. She was thrilled to be called up. I said, "Do you fancy predicting the games this week?" And she said, "Sure." So I know I have sent you my predictions, and I'm reliably informed I have also sent you her predictions. So, knowing that you are a man who likes to be organized, I imagine that book is well and truly up to date. Take us through what week 6 is going to look like. I presume we've still got buys.
We do indeed.
Once the buys kick in, they generally hang around like a bad smell for a while.
They do indeed. The 4 teams that find themselves on bye this week are the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams, the Miami Dolphins, which they've been probably praying for that bye since about week 2.
Oh, yes.
And travelling back from the UK, the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
As seemed to be the case the last couple of years, that they give the bye week to the teams coming back from the London game.
Yeah.
However, obviously they've started doing a couple of different things with that. So obviously the Jets didn't get that. They're in the Monday night game, which we'll come to right at the end. And obviously we have the second of the 3 London games, which features the Jags and the Bears. And then, of course, next week we will have the third and final of the London games, which will also feature the Jags in their home game slot, which they've done for the last couple of years, where they've got the Jags coming over for 2 weeks in a row, playing a road game and a home game in back-to-back weeks. But we start the week with the Thursday night football, which sees the San Francisco 49ers travelling up the coast to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we open immediately with a difference of opinion in the fact that myself and Mr. Cook have taken the 49ers to bounce back, whereas the Stats Mistress has taken the Seahawks to bounce back on this one. So, interesting that we've got a difference of opinion on the very first game of the week.
Mm.
We also have a difference of opinion in the aforementioned UK London game, the 2:30 kickoff between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chicago Bears. Mr. Cook and the Stats Mistress have taken the Bears with home field advantage. I've gone with the Jags with what you'd class as being home field advantage, sort of technically, strangely, because they almost play so many of their games in London. So it's almost like a second home. Yeah, I think the Jags will be able to sort of use that win they got last week against the Colts and use it as a bit of a springboard for me personally. But I can understand why you picked the Bears. The next 5 or 6 games potentially. Yeah, we've all gone consensus picks on this one, so we've all got in order the Ravens to beat the Commanders. A bit surprising that since the Commanders are 4-1, but obviously Ravens at home, different beast. We've all gone for the Packers to beat the Cardinals. We've all gone for the Texans to beat the Patriots in New England. We've all gone for the Buccaneers to beat the Saints in New Orleans. That's also coming off the back of the fact that Derek Carr is set to miss a little bit of time with an injury that he picked up in the game.
Yes.
We've all backed the Eagles to get the business taken care of at home to the Cleveland Browns. And we've all backed the Colts to go on the road in Tennessee and bounce back from their loss against the Jags. Next up, we have a difference of opinion in the fact that we've got the Los Angeles Chargers off the back of their bye, travelling to Denver to take on the Broncos. Andy has gone with the Chargers, whereas myself and the Stats Misters have gone with the Broncos. That one. Next up, we all fancy the Steelers to arrest their 2-game losing slide against the Raiders in Las Vegas. We've all taken the Falcons, shock horror, at Carolina against the Panthers. Somewhat surprisingly, we've all gone for the Lions to beat the Cowboys in Dallas, which would mean that the Cowboys have lost all 3 of their home games so far this season. But obviously, you would argue the Lions probably are a bit of a stronger team than the Cowboys. So, potentially not that surprising. We've all gone for the Bengals to beat the Giants in New York on the Sunday night football. And then, like I said, the Jets, coming off the back of the UK London game, they have a home game against the Buffalo Bills in the first game since the sacking of Robert Saleh. As sometimes tends to be the case with these games, I've gone for that to be the sort of the shot in the arm that the Jets need. So I've actually gone for the Jets to win that one. Andy and the Satsumers have taken the Bills each. The only other thing that put me off choosing the Bills was the fact that Josh Allen took that huge hit on Sunday and then came back into the game and obviously threw those 3 incomplete passes to sort of close out the game against the Texans. I'm not entirely convinced that he doesn't have a concussion and that they're maybe being a little bit surreptitious with like the injury report and stuff like that, potentially. That was the only thing that sort of like swayed me against picking the Bills, personally. So, there we have it. 14 games in total. 14 picks by myself, Mr. Cook, and the Stats Mistress. No agreement across the coast of the 14 picks, so there's no need for any tie breaks or anything like that. That just leaves us with the side bet. Do you, as you're behind, do you want to jump in and go first?
Yes, I'm going to get all up in this business. There are some standout games, and then there is obviously the horror bags. I think quite simply, straight off the bat, you've got to take the Atlanta Falcons to decimate the Carolina Panthers. That's an absolute must game right there.
I like it. I'll jump in with my 2 here. I'm going to go for the Steelers. Steelers to beat the Raiders. And the Eagles to beat the Browns. Your next 2 picks.
Yeah, I was looking at that Eagles game. I will take the Houston Texans to beat the New England Patriots. And I know it's come up already, but sometimes I go with the numbers. So the 3-2 Chicago Bears to probably do a number on the 1-4 Jacksonville Jaguars.
Interesting.
Look forward to the Jaguars absolutely decimating the Bears.
Didn't think that's where we were going to go. So in that case, I am going to take the Buccaneers. Seems that they have got the game against the Saints without Derek Carr. And to close out my 4, I'll take the Packers at home to the Cardinals.
I thought I was going to sneak that one out from under you.
That just leaves your last pick, sir.
There's a game that's lurking that would go very much against my better judgment. I know they lost to the Ravens, but they looked a hell of a lot better than they have done for a while. So whereas I was saying, you got to go with the numbers, I think I'm going to roll the dice and take the Cincinnati Bengals to take care of the New York Giants. Obviously, that is ignoring a recent win and a stat saying that they are damn good at the moment. You can't tell me that Bengals team that went toe to freaking toe with that Ravens team, they can't lose.
Exactly. I agree completely.
He says they can't lose. Tune in and watch them lose to the Giants at the weekend.
Obviously, as stated, they were a missed field goal away from actually beating the Ravens in that game as well. So just to clarify, Andy's team, he has and he's 4 teams even. He has the Falcons on the road against the Carolina Panthers, the Texans on the road against the New England Patriots, the Chicago Bears technically at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but that game is being played in London, and the Cincinnati Bengals on the road against the New York Giants. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders, the Philadelphia Eagles at home to the Cleveland Browns, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road against the New Orleans Saints, and I have the Green Bay Packers at home to the Arizona Cardinals. That is your Week 6 predictions done and dusted.
I'm sure it's no peek behind the curtain too much, but to keep things under a certain time scale that we work to, obviously that will be the end of our podcast for this week. If we'd have had more time, this is just a little tantalization. If we'd have had more time, I was listening to a not sports related podcast earlier today that brought up what has to be one of the most amazing little games for when we get an opportunity to play a little game. It could not have been better designed for you on this subject. I was like, I've got to do that later. So I've Googled it, and I think I've narrowed it down to a fun little game, but I will have to save it for maybe next time. We shall see. Thank you very much.
If that's not a hook for people to tune in next week, I don't know what
Talk about. Thank you very much to my co-host, the master of the book, the master of the co-host, Miss Paul Williams. Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Stats Mistress for taking double duty. Apologies to our guest for my just complete inability to do anything. Thank you to you, dear listener / watcher, for joining us. And maybe if you're in the market for being a member of the crew, click a like, share, a subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out any other podcasts we've got. There are a couple. And we will be here same time next week to bring you American football news and all the rest. Thank you very much. We will see you next time. Tatty bye.
So there we go. What's into that? Even without a guest, I think we can still just about get through. We always manage to pull some guest predictions out of somewhere. I won't comment on where. Big thank you for joining us. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. If you feel so inclined and feel generous, you could maybe click the old like button, share the podcast around, subscribe if you already haven't. Leave us a review. There's a couple of places you can review. Obviously, you can drop comments into the YouTube video, etc. But you can review the podcast if you listen to it on the audio channels through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud if you're getting it from the actual source. And check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button for you to get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
This has been another episode of CookieCast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.